everyone, David Aragona and Craig Milkowski here, taking a look at the DRF Saturday race of the day. And on Saturday, it is the Grade 1 Starlet Stakes from Los Alamitos. This one for the 2-year-old fillies going the 1.16 distance on the dirt course at Los Al. And Craig, unsurprisingly, Bob Baffert has a big presence in this race. He always has some of the top 2-year-olds in California. He's entered 3 runners here. And as we throw up the field for this race, he does have the morning line favorite, the number 3, Feza.
He does, and I think he also has the second choice, if I'm not mistaken. So just typical kind of Southern California race for 2- and 3-year-olds where Bob Baffert seems to hold the most powerful cards. But I don't think he's ascension here, to be honest.
And with this being the race of the day, you'll see during this preview pop up on your screen the QR code, which you can scan to get race of the day access and a free formulator PPs to do some handicapping of this Starlet Stakes along with us. Craig, I agree with you. Bob Baffert has a pretty strong presence in this race. There are some other runners to consider, though. The number 5, Uncontrollable, coming out of a runner-up finish in a Grade 2 at Santa Anita. The number 7, Blessed Touch, one of the fastest 2-year-old fillies on speed figures in the country. We'll get to all of them in just a little bit, but before we talk about the contenders, let's take a look at the Timeform US pace projector for this race. And there is some speed signed on, and I think we could see one of those Baffert trainees hook up with that fast filly drawn towards the outside, Blessed Touch. Both of these runners in their prior sprint races have shown some speed.
Yeah, I have no argument with that. Feza looked pretty quick sprinting to an easy win last time out. So I don't think it's going to be any easy thing for Blessed Touch. He may have a slight advantage being drawn to the outside among those two.
And while we're talking about the Timeform US pace projector, we should also mention one of the new features being rolled out on the new version of Timeform US, which you can access from your DRF mobile PPs under the Timeform US tab. And that is the finish projector, kind of an extension of the pace projector and a visual representation of the Timeform US power picks, which you might be used to seeing in the PPs on timeformus.com. And Craig, the finish projector here shows the number 7, Blessed Touch, as being the winner of this race. And it's based a lot on the Timeform US speed figure, so not a big surprise that she's getting a lot of credit for earning that huge speed figure 2-back.
Yeah, it was a big effort in the sprint. I'm sure we're going to talk about our subsequent try and how we feel about that one. The big difference between this and just seeing the power picks is, for one, you only get the top 3. And here you can kind of see the gap between the horses as well to kind of see how contentious we think it is.
Yeah, this finish projector, that's the point of it, to show the relationships in terms of ability between these horses at how the algorithm sees it at the finish. So, the number 7, Blessed Touch, predicted to be a pretty decisive winner, and it's kind of a toss-up for second, according to the algorithm, between the number 1, Doing It the Hard Way, and the number 3, Feza. Clearly, this finish projector is favoring the Bob Baffert trainees. Let's start to go through some of these contenders, Craig, and we'll begin with one of those Baffert trainees drawn down towards the inside, the number 1, Doing It the Hard Way, and we'll take a look at her race last time when she was going the mile distance at Del Mar. Now, she is still a maiden coming into this Grade 1 affair. Almost got the job done last time, but proved second best to Ice Dancing. You can see gave her a little bit of a bump in upper stretch there, but Doing It the Hard Way just kind of stays on at one pace towards the end. It did seem, Craig, like she improved with a stretch out in distance.
It did, and there was a huge gap back to third. I mean, this was strictly a match race. Ice Dancing was a horse who came in with a big reputation. She was 2-5 in the race. So no disgrace losing there, and definitely a big jump in speed figures for Doing It the Hard Way.
Yeah, she seems like one that, while she ran reasonably well sprinting earlier in her career, she really has taken that step forward with the added distance. And that's not a big surprise when you look at her pedigree. Her dam is a full sister to Painter, who was a very good runner for the Bob Baffert stable a number of years ago. I believe he was a narrow loser of the Belmont Stakes during his career, in addition to winning other Grade 1s over route distances. So Doing It the Hard Way definitely bred to go a little bit longer. And Greg, when I was searching through DRF Formulator looking for some stats on Bob Baffert, I found this pretty interesting stat that applies to Doing It the Hard Way. Horses that are making their second starts in a route race on dirt for the Bob Baffert barn in graded stakes, his win percentage in a 55-horse sample is approaching 50% with a very healthy ROI.
Yeah, you were a better data miner than me. When I was looking for him, I just kept finding stats that all were very similar, where Bob Baffert had a high win percentage around 30% and a low ROI. So this is a pretty interesting one. I wasn't able to come up with that query, but 47% over a big sample. I think you have to pay attention to that one.
Now, we should mention that there probably are not a lot of maidens in this sample, not horses training in graded stakes races that are maidens like doing it the hard way is. So perhaps it doesn't apply perfectly to her, but I do think it speaks to the fact that when Bob Baffert runs these horses in a route and then steps them up into graded stakes company or gives them another shot in graded stakes company in a subsequent route race, typically means that they're meant to go these longer distances. So I do think that could be a meaningful stat for the number 1 horse. We'll skip over the number 2, who's going to be a big price in this race, and check out the other Bob Baffert trainee, the number 3 Feza, who's likely to be the favorite in this race. We'll view her race last time when she broke her maiden in her only career start, and she took all the money this day, Craig, getting bet down to 4 to 5, and certainly delivered on the hype.
She did, no doubt about it. It's a race where the runner-up has already come back to win as well with an improved speed figure. So it's rare. Bob Baffert does really good with these kind of horses, obviously. No big surprise there. But it isn't like he always has them fully cranked up either. So I'm good. That 96 speed figure, maybe you're thinking it's not as strong as you would have expected, but I also would expect her to run faster this time.
And she's one of these first-time stretch-outs for Bob Baffert. I did look up some stats for this as well, and the numbers are reasonably positive. He's 6 for 15 over the past 5 years in graded stakes with second-time starters going sprint to route. The ROI, though, is just $1.69, which is probably kind of in line with some of the stats that you said you were looking up, Craig. High win percentage, but these Bob Baffert trainees tend to take a lot of money in these situations, and Feza does project to be a pretty short price in this race. I think the big question, though, is the stretch-out, Craig, and she is a daughter of Gervin, actually one of 2 contenders that are daughters of Gervin in this race. And while we've seen the Gervins be pretty precocious, I was looking up some formulator stats for him, and believe it or not, he's just had 1 route winner on any surface in his first crop across the 3 surfaces. He's 1 for 22 with his route starter so far. So a little bit surprising there. The Gervins have been much more sprint oriented. So we'll see if these fillies, Feza and as well as Blessed Touch, can stretch out in distance here. Finish up these Bob Baffert trainees by moving on to the one that will be the biggest price of his trio, the number 4, Fast and Shiny. And she just has a lot to prove in this race, Craig. She hasn't run nearly fast enough in her 2 prior dirt races. Probably not a good sign that Baffert chose to run her on turf twice, especially with a horse that has more of a dirt pedigree. So she just seems like she's kind of filling out the field in here.
Yeah, that was my thought exactly. The move to turf seemed more like wishful thinking or just taking a shot, because she hadn't shown a whole lot on dirt. Even when she broke her maiden first out, it was just at 5 furlongs. It wasn't a very good speed figure. She beat her entry mate that day, but that one's obviously went on to get better, particularly with the stretch out. Not a fan of this one.
Move on to a non-Baffert trainee, the number 5 Uncontrollable, who's drawn just to the outside of Fast and Shiny. She's coming off a pretty good effort last time in the Chandelier, which we'll take a look at here. And one thing you might notice about her watching this replay is she is pretty pint-sized. There's not a whole lot to her. I remember watching the track feed prior to the last race, and I think she barely tips the scales over 900 pounds. She's not a big horse, but she definitely is pretty game. She can run a little bit, and she handled the stretch out last time, going the 1.16 distance, taking a good late run at the 2-time Grade 1 winner, and Tell Me No Lies.
Yeah, it's another one that took a nice jump when she stretched out to 2 turns. She's handled everything thrown at her so far. She's run well every time, I should say. She's been a runner-up both times. I will note that she's a deep closer, and every single race she's been in has been littered with red fractions. So she has had some pretty nice setups in all her starts.
Another horse with a route experience is the number 6 Pride of the Nile, but her experience going longer comes on the turf. And I think surface is going to be the big question for her as she switches to the main track for this Grade 1 test, because we definitely know that she can get the distance, Craig. Watching her last couple of races, she's been a little bit green. She has a tendency to lug in, but she's always running through the wire, and she's got some gameness to her. Pedigree, it can kind of go either way, so I wasn't really sure what to do with her in this race.
I had similar thoughts. If I had to make a call, I would say the fact that she debuted on turf and has stayed there despite losing that debut. She obviously improved to win her next two. Tends to tell me that maybe they're just taking more of a shot trying to get a grade one placing in a race which hasn't come up all that strong. So for me, I'd be willing I'd be leaning towards the negative side of her moving the dirt for the first time.
Yeah, she's the kind of horse where I'd want to let price be my guide. I think she's 9-2 on the morning line. To me, that seems way too short on a horse that has to answer the surface question coming into this race. But she has shown some talent, and I like the way that she stays on at the end of her races. I think there's some upside here, and there's dirt in the pedigree. I just would want to get more like 8-1 on a horse like that. And if she's a shorter price than the horse on the outside, the number 7, Blessed Touch, who we're going to talk about next as we take a look at her last race in the Desi Arnaz, I think that's excellent value on Blessed Touch. We'll see how they ultimately bet this race here, Craig, but she ran okay in this race, losing to Justique, who made a big late run from off the pace. But I understand how some might say it's a little disappointing given the speed figure that she had run, breaking her maiden in her prior start.
Yeah, maybe I'm being a little overly generous, but I'm giving her somewhat of a pass for this effort because that pace early was blazing. I know Justique was all the hype in this race, and she got a perfect setup. You see that huge pace figure early in the opening quarter mile for the race. And I just think being wide around the turn, chasing those fast horses probably did her in. And it's not like she totally backed out of it. I just think maybe the two turns, a more relaxed pace, and we'll see a better effort than last time. Whether it's good enough to beat the other Bob Baffert horses, I'm not sure, but she's certainly going to offer more value.
Yeah, Craig, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that 1:14 time from US speed figure that she earned 2 back for that maiden victory is either the second or third fastest speed figure that's been earned by any 2-year-old filly so far this year. So she clearly has ability. I think distance is the big question for her. She's another one of these daughters of Gervin. I'd argue that the dam side pedigree is maybe a little bit more convincing on Feza to go longer than it is on Blessed Touch. But I agree, she didn't run that badly last time, given that extremely fast early pace that you see color-coded in the Timeform USPP. So, Craig, let's take a look at our picks for this race. You're going to go with that number 7, Blessed Touch. And I think she's 5-1 on the morning line. And to me, if she goes off at that price, that would be excellent value on her.
Yeah, I'm hoping she will, because that's what I'm looking for, value in here. I don't think she's the most likely winner. I think that's probably Feza, to be honest, but she's going to get bet and bet pretty heavily. So I think Blessed Touch is every bit as talented. The distance is a question, but we're getting much more in value with her.
And I went with the other Bob Baffert runner, the number 1, doing it the hard way. I was a little surprised to see her pegged as the morning line second choice at 7-2. I'm kind of hoping that being a maiden in this race, she drifts up a little bit off of that line that was set. But I just think she's moving in the right direction in her 4th career start, handles to stretch out in distance. So I just like the way that she's coming into this race. But she does obviously need to improve a little bit to beat some others that are in here. So it's an interesting edition of the Grade 1 Starlet on Saturday at Los Alamitos, the DRF race of the day. Good luck if you're playing the races this weekend.